The phone rang at 2:17 in the morning. I remember that exact time because I was still awake. My husband, David, was sleeping beside me, and the house was completely quiet. The only sound I could hear was the air conditioner humming in the hallway. When I saw my daughter Emily's name on my phone, I immediately knew something was wrong. Emily never called me that late. Not when she was a teenager. Not when she went away to college. Not even after she moved into her own apartment 3 years earlier. I answered. "Mom," her voice was shaking. "Emily, what's wrong?" There was a long silence. Then she whispered 4 words that changed everything. "Mom, I'm pregnant." I sat up in bed. For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. Pregnant. My 26-year-old daughter was pregnant, and she wasn't married. I know what you're probably thinking. Maybe I was angry, maybe I screamed, maybe I asked her who the father was, but I didn't. My first question was much simpler. "Are you okay?" She started crying. "I'm scared, Mom." I got out of bed and walked into the hallway. "Where are you?" "At my apartment." "I'm coming." "Mom, please don't." I said, "I'm coming." I grabbed my coat, my keys, and my purse. David woke up. "What's happening?" I looked at him. "Emily is pregnant." He stared at me. "What?" "She's pregnant." He slowly sat on the edge of the bed. "Is she married?" I shook my head. "No." David rubbed his face. And then he asked the question that I would later realize was only the beginning. "Who is the father?" I didn't have an answer. And neither did Emily. At least that's what she wanted me to believe. Before I continue, let me introduce myself. My name is Laura Mitchell. I'm 52 years old, and for most of my life I believed I understood my family. I thought I knew my husband. I thought I knew my daughter. And I thought I knew every important secret that could possibly exist inside our home. I was wrong. If you enjoy emotional family stories about love, betrayal, forgiveness, and the secrets people hide from the ones they love most, stay with me until the end. And if this story touches your heart, please subscribe to the channel. Because what happened after that phone call was something I never could have imagined. When I arrived at Emily's apartment, she opened the door wearing an oversized gray sweatshirt. Her eyes were red. She had obviously been crying for hours. I walked inside and hugged her. She held on to me like she was 10 years old again. "Mom, I'm sorry." I pulled away. "Don't apologize for being pregnant." "But Dad is going to hate me." "Your father is shocked. That's different from hate." She looked down. I noticed something strange. She wasn't behaving like someone who had just discovered she was pregnant. She looked like someone who had been carrying a secret for a very long time. I sat beside her. "How far along are you?" She hesitated. "Almost 5 months." My heart stopped. "5 months?" She nodded. "Emily, why didn't you tell me?" "I was going to." "When?" "I don't know." "Does the father know?" She looked away. "Yes." "Who is he?" Silence. "Emily," she wiped her tears. "I can't tell you." I felt something cold move through my chest. "Why?" "Because if I tell you, everything will fall apart." I stared at my daughter. "What does that mean?" She didn't answer. Instead, she whispered something that made absolutely no sense. "Mom, the baby isn't the problem." I frowned. "Then what is?" She looked directly into my eyes. "The father is." The next morning, David and I sat at our kitchen table. Neither of us had slept. David kept staring at his coffee. "So she knows who the father is?" "Yes." "And she won't tell us?" "Not yet." He shook his head. "I don't understand." Neither did I. David had always been protective of Emily. When she was 16, he interviewed her first boyfriend like a police detective. When she went to college, he drove 6 hours just to fix a broken window in her dorm. And when Emily graduated, he told her something I would never forget. Whatever happens in life, you can always come home. Now she was pregnant. And somehow, she was afraid to come home. That frightened me more than the pregnancy itself. 3 days later, Emily came over for dinner. David barely touched his food. Finally, he asked, "Emily, who is the father?" She put down her fork. "Dad, I deserve to know." "I know. Does he know you're pregnant?" "Yes." "Are you together?" She hesitated. "No." David's jaw tightened. "Did he leave you?" "No." "Then what's the problem?" Emily looked at me, and I could see tears forming in her eyes. "He can't be part of the baby's life." David stood up. Why? Emily started crying. I can't explain. David walked out of the room. I followed him into the hallway. David. He turned toward me. Something is very wrong. I know, this isn't some random boyfriend situation. I know, he lowered his voice. Laura, what if this man is dangerous? I hadn't considered that until then. That night I barely slept. The next morning I called Emily. She didn't answer. I called again. Nothing. Then around noon she finally texted me. Mom, please trust me. I am doing this for my baby. I read that message again and again. Doing what? Protecting the baby from whom? That afternoon, I went through an old box in the basement. I wasn't looking for anything specific. But sometimes life has a strange way of putting the truth in front of you when you're not ready for it. Inside that box were photographs from Emily's childhood. Her first birthday, her kindergarten graduation, her high school prom, and one photograph I hadn't seen in years. It was Emily at age 17, standing beside a man. I almost dropped the picture because I recognized him. His name was Michael, and he wasn't Emily's boyfriend. He was someone I had known for years, someone our entire family trusted, someone I never imagined could possibly be connected to this pregnancy. Michael had been part of our family for almost 15 years. He was David's closest friend. They had worked together at the same construction company. He came to our Thanksgiving dinners. He helped us move houses. He attended Emily's graduation. He was practically family, but there was something else, something I had forgotten. When Emily was 17, she had gone through a terrible period. She stopped eating properly. She stopped talking. She started staying in her room all day. We assumed it was teenage depression. Michael was the person who encouraged her to talk. He would tell David, she just needs someone to listen. At the time, we were grateful. Now, sitting alone in my basement, I stared at that photograph. I wondered whether I'd been grateful to the wrong person. I immediately called Emily. This time she answered. Mom, Emily, I need you to tell me something. What? Is the father Michael? There was silence. Then I heard her breathing change. Mom, Emily, how did you know? My entire body went cold. Is it him? She started crying. Yes. I sat down on the basement floor. I couldn't even speak. Michael, David's best friend, a man who had been inside our home for years, a man I had trusted, a man who knew our family better than almost anyone. I whispered, how? Emily cried harder. Mom, it wasn't what you think. What am I supposed to think? He didn't do anything to me. Then explain. I was 17. I closed my eyes. Emily, he was there for me when I was struggling. My voice became sharper. That's not an explanation. I know. Are you telling me this relationship started when you were 17? No, she paused, then said, it started years later. I didn't understand. What do you mean? I was 24. I exhaled. For the first time in several minutes, I felt like I could breathe. But then she said, there's something else. What? Michael isn't the only person who knows. I froze. Who else? My father. I couldn't move. My father? Yes. Emily, your father knows. He's known for almost 2 years. I hung up. Not because I was angry at Emily, because I was terrified of what I was about to ask my husband. That evening, David came home at 6. He walked through the front door like nothing had happened. I was sitting at the kitchen table. David, he stopped. What? Did you know? He looked confused. Know what? About Emily and Michael. His face changed, not dramatically, just enough. A slight movement around his eyes, a hesitation. That was all I needed. You knew. He sat down. Laura, how long? Almost 2 years. I felt like the floor disappeared beneath me. You lied to me for 2 years. I was protecting Emily. From what? From us. I stared at him. Us, he nodded. She was scared you would hate her. Hate her? He leaned forward. She didn't want to destroy this family. I stood up. Then why didn't you tell me? Because she begged me not to. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She's our daughter. I know. She's pregnant. I know. And Michael is the father. David closed his eyes. Yes. I walked away. For the first time in 30 years of marriage, I didn't know whether I could trust my husband. 2 days later, Michael came to our house. I opened the door. He looked nervous. Laura, what are you doing here? I need to talk to you. You should have talked to me 2 years ago. He looked down. I know. I stepped aside. Come in. He entered the living room. David was already there. I looked at both men, two people I had trusted. Two people who had kept the biggest secret of my daughter's life from me. I said, I want the truth. Michael sat down. Laura, I love Emily. I interrupted him. Don't say that. He stopped. You don't get to make this about love. He nodded. I understand. Then tell me what happened. He looked at David. David nodded. Michael took a breath. Emily and I started seeing each other when she was 24. I know, but that's not the whole story. What else? Michael looked at the floor. I have a daughter. I frowned. What? My first marriage. He explained that he had been married before. His daughter, Sarah, was born when he was 23. But Sarah had died as a child. Cancer. Emily had learned about Sarah years earlier. And according to Michael, that shared experience was what brought them closer. But I still didn't understand why everyone had hidden the relationship. Then Michael said, Emily was afraid you would never forgive her. Why? Because she knew you wanted her to marry someone else. I remembered. 2 years earlier, Emily had been engaged to a man named Daniel. Everyone loved Daniel. He had a good job, good family, good manners. But Emily broke off the engagement. At the time, we thought she had simply changed her mind. Now I understood. She had already fallen in love with Michael, but there was another problem. Michael was 17 years older than her, and he was her father's closest friend. The relationship would destroy the family, so they kept it secret, until Emily became pregnant. Then everything became impossible to hide. I asked Michael, why isn't he with her now? He looked at me, because I left. Why? Because I discovered something. What? He pulled an envelope from his jacket. He handed it to me. Inside was a photograph, a baby ultrasound. And underneath it was a handwritten note. I read it, then read it again. My hands started shaking. The note said, the baby isn't Michael's. I looked up. What is this? Michael didn't answer. David did. That's the reason we couldn't tell you. I looked at my husband. What are you talking about? David's voice broke. Emily is carrying someone else's child. I couldn't breathe. Whose? Nobody answered. Then the front door opened. Emily walked into the room. She was crying, and behind her stood Daniel, her former fiancé. The man we had all thought she had left behind. I stared at Daniel. Why are you here? He looked at Emily. She took his hand. And then she said, Mom, the baby is Daniel's. I felt completely lost. Then why did you tell me Michael was the father? I didn't. I looked at Michael. He shook his head. I never said I was the father. I looked at David. He looked away. Everything suddenly became clear. They had allowed me to believe the worst because they were protecting Daniel. I turned toward my daughter. Start from the beginning. Emily sat down. She told me everything. She had broken off her engagement with Daniel because she believed he had cheated on her. She discovered messages between him and another woman. She left him. Months later, they met again. They talked. He admitted the truth. He had not cheated. The woman was his sister's friend, helping him plan a surprise engagement party. Emily had misunderstood the messages, but by then she was already in a relationship with Michael. And then she discovered she was pregnant. She didn't know what to do. Michael offered to take responsibility. Daniel wanted to marry her. Emily refused both. Why? I asked. She looked at me, because I realized something. What? I was so afraid of disappointing everyone that I stopped listening to myself. The room became quiet. She continued, I thought if I married Daniel, everyone would be happy. And Michael? I cared about him, but I knew the age difference would hurt this family. She looked at her father. And Dad knew. David nodded. But Mom, she began crying. I was terrified of telling you. I sat beside her. Why? Because all my life I thought your love had conditions. Those words destroyed me. I looked at my daughter. What conditions? She wiped her face. Be successful. Be respectable. Marry the right person. Don't embarrass the family. Don't make mistakes. She whispered. I was so scared of becoming the daughter you were disappointed in that I forgot you were supposed to be the person I could come home to. I started crying. Because suddenly I realized something. I had spent years telling my daughter that she could tell me anything, but I had never actually made her believe it. Daniel finally spoke. I love Emily. He looked at me. I made mistakes, but I want to be there for my child. I asked him, do you want to marry her? He looked at Emily. I want to marry her if she wants me. Everyone looked at Emily. She was silent. Then she said, I don't know. And for once, nobody pressured her. Not David, not Michael, not me. We simply waited. That was the moment our family began healing. Not because everything was suddenly perfect, but because we finally stopped forcing people to live according to the story we had written for them. 6 months later, Emily gave birth to a baby girl. Her name was Grace. I was in the hospital room when she opened her eyes for the first time. Emily held her close. Daniel stood beside the bed. David was crying, and even Michael came to the hospital, not as the father, not as Emily's partner, but as someone who had once loved her and wanted nothing except for her to be happy. Life didn't turn out the way any of us expected. Emily and Daniel eventually got married, not because she was pregnant, not because our family demanded it. They waited. They went to counseling. They rebuilt their trust. And almost a year after Grace was born, they had a small wedding. There were no huge decorations, no expensive venue, just family. And when Emily walked down the aisle, she wasn't the frightened girl who had called me at 2:17 in the morning. She was a woman who finally understood that making a mistake didn't make her unworthy of love. After the wedding, she came to me. Mom, yes, she hugged me. I'm sorry I lied. I held her tightly. I'm sorry you ever felt you had to. She pulled away. Do you regret anything? I thought about that question. Then I answered honestly. Yes. She looked surprised. I regret that you were afraid to tell me the truth. She started crying. So do I. We hugged again, and I realized something I wish I'd understood years earlier. Families don't break because someone makes a mistake. Sometimes families break because people are too afraid to tell the truth. We spend so much time protecting our children from disappointment that we forget to protect them from loneliness. We tell them, come to me when you're in trouble, but sometimes what they hear is, come to me when you've made the right choices. And those are not the same thing. Today, Grace is 2 years old. She calls me grandma. She calls David grandpa. And whenever she runs into our house, she doesn't care about the mistakes her parents made. She doesn't care about old secrets. She doesn't care about who is right or wrong. She just wants to be loved. And maybe that's what families are supposed to be. Not perfect, not without mistakes, not without secrets, but a place where, when everything falls apart, you still have somewhere to go. And if there's one thing my daughter's pregnancy taught me, it's this. Sometimes the secret that changes a family isn't the secret itself. It's the reason someone was too afraid to tell you. So if you have a daughter, a son, a husband, a wife, or anyone you love, don't just tell them, you can tell me anything. Make sure they believe it. Because sometimes, the person standing silently in front of you isn't hiding a terrible secret. Sometimes they're simply terrified that the truth will make you stop loving them. And no child should ever have to live with that fear. Thank you for listening to Laura's story. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel for more emotional family stories and share this story with someone who may need to hear it. Because sometimes one conversation can save an entire family.